in a Parisian cafe. Okay, this is the October 23rd, 2025 hearing for Z0270-25 application for OSU's Forestry Education Facility. My name is Joe Turner. I'm the county's hearings officer. I'll start with some brief announcements and a summary of the process that will follow so everyone understands how you participate in the hearing. I start by saying I'm not a county employee. I'm licensed as an attorney and trained as a planner. I serve under contract to the Board of Commissioners. Say that so you know you're getting you're getting an independent review of the application before me today. My role as the hearings officer is to conduct public hearings and make decisions about certain land use matters in Clackamas County. In making those decisions, I'm required to apply the county's existing laws. I'm not a policymaker. I don't have the authority to vary from or change the laws. If anyone thinks the laws need to be changed, you can work with Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to do that. But state law requires that this application be judged based on the laws in effect when the application was filed. As a hearings officer, I provide an unbiased decision maker, and I believe I am unbiased with regard to this application. I've not had any pre-hearing contact with any of the parties regarding the substance of the application, and I don't have any interest in the subject property or any of the surrounding properties. But anyone has the right to challenge my impartiality, to argue that I'm biased in one way or another, and you can do that when it's your opportunity to testify. Procedure will follow. I'll start by asking staff to summarize their staff report, copies of which are available on the county's website. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to present their proposal and respond to the staff report. If anyone else shows up and wants to say something about this application, they may do so. Once everyone's had an initial opportunity to testify, I'll give staff and the applicant alone the opportunity to respond to the testimony that was offered. If the responses include any new evidence, I will give everyone a chance to respond to the new evidence. Otherwise, I'll close the public portion of the hearing and announce what I'm going to do. Generally, I will issue a written decision within about 2 weeks after the close of the record. I'll send my decision to the county. The county will send it to parties of record. So anybody who testifies orally or in writing before the close of the record will be sure and receive a copy of my decision when it's issued. Anyone with an interest in this application may offer relevant oral or written testimony, but testimony should be relevant to the applicable approval criteria, which are set out in the staff report. However, it's important that all parties make their best case to me. My decisions are final for purposes of the county, but may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals, or LUBA. But LUBA generally will not allow new testimony and evidence on appeal. They'll decide any appeal based on the record before me. So if you feel it's important that myself or any future decision maker knows something about this application, you need to make sure it gets into the record before me. In order to preserve your right to appeal, you or someone expressly representing you must testify orally or in writing before the close of the record. And in order to raise an issue on appeal, someone must have raised that issue before me with enough specificity that everyone can understand what the issue is. If the applicant wants to object to any conditions of approval on constitutional grounds, they must raise those issues before me as well. If anyone feels they need more time to prepare, they can ask me to hold the record open or continue the hearing. If I hold the record open, you'll have the opportunity to submit additional written testimony and evidence before I make a decision. If I continue the hearing, we can come back and do this again at a later date. But whether or not the hearing is continued or the record is held open for any other purpose, state law requires that I hold the record open for an additional week for the applicant alone to submit a final written argument without any new evidence. The applicant can waive that right if they choose, but if anybody else wants me to hold the record open for any other purpose or to continue the hearing, you must make that request before the close of the hearing today. When you testify, please begin by stating your name and full mailing address. If you represent someone else, please say so. And, well, please, everybody's last name is on the screen, so I don't have to do that one. Ms. Fields will give us an overview of the online portion and then summarize her staff report. That concludes my introduction.
This public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording on the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature. Attendees on PC and iPad, you have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar, which is either at the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on the device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all the participants' cameras, not just the one who is speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of the hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, email the written testimony to myself, Joy Fields, at jfields@clackamas.us, or mail it to Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division, 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, Oregon, 97045. The staff contact and email address is also available on the webpage where you found the Zoom link for today's hearing. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address by emailing it to the staff contact for the application or by entering it in the Zoom chat function during the hearing. We are here today for the public hearing step for conditional use application Z0270-25. The applicant is requesting approval of upgrades to an existing education facility by adding a classroom to support the forest management research and experimentation facility that exists on site. In 2020, there was a conditional use that approved a pit toilet and covered structure, and this is upgrading that site to have closed classroom facility as well as restrooms. The applicant has applied for site evaluation for septic feasibility, and the septic permit number is there on the screen. Also, as part of the 2020 land use decision and approval, the applicant applied for a street construction permit through the Transportation and Engineering Program, and that was reviewed by the engineering staff and was part of the implementation of the 2020 land use decision. Testimony received for this application was prepared and provided by the Transportation and Engineering Program. As part of the application, there is also communication between staff and the water master that the applicant provided for evidence of a lawful source of water, as well as email communication between the Transportation and Engineering staff and myself and the applicant, documenting there was enough information in the application to determine whether the transportation system had enough capacity for the proposed use, and that there was enough evidence in the application to make findings to that effect. We are here today because forest management research and experimentation facilities that are regulated by ORS 526.215 are conditional use in the ag forest zone. The ag forest zone is a farm and forest zone that sends you to section 407 of our zoning code for the specific requirements of different uses, as well as the development standards for those uses. Therefore, we are looking at both the underlying zone of ZDO 407 as well as ZDO 406 for the criteria for the underlying zone. I would note that ORS 526.225 identifies education as furthering the purpose of ORS 526.215, and that is one of the reasons why the proposed use is being reviewed as a conditional use. As a conditional use, the application has to be a conditional use in the underlying zone. The site has to be suitable for the proposed use, and it must comply with the transportation capacity as required by 1007-07. Staff reviewed the application and found that the site is suitable for the proposed use. The applicant is proposing to build the structure outside of the floodplain in an area that is adjacent to or close to the existing parking area. And it has plenty of room for an extra classroom, as well as the site is a great location for providing the education that is being proposed for the classroom facility or the structure. The applicant provided comprehensive plan, goals, and policies. Staff are not sure where those came from, but did find that the application was in line with the comprehensive plan and goals and policies for agricultural and forest uses. And the project complies with the 700s overlay section and the 800s specific uses, as well as the development standards in the 1000s. Reviewing the proposed use, staff did not find that it substantially limited, impaired, or precluded the use of the surrounding properties for the farm or forest uses that are primary uses in the ag forest and exclusive farm use zones. Therefore, staff recommended approval with conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. On page 5 of the staff report, it mentions conditional use and variance. I assume that was just a typo.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
No variance is being requested by this application.
That's what I thought. Just wanted to confirm. Page 14, I already checked with staff about that. It refers to exhibit 2F. That should be 2E. I had to make sure I wasn't missing an exhibit. Page 18. The finding in the middle of the page says the use is an enclosed structure with classroom spaces there. I'm not, and it refers to the definition of an institutional use. That makes sense, but how does it relate to the transportation concurrency standards? It's just because it's located in that section, I didn't see how it was relevant.
Institutional uses are subject to the concurrency standards.
They are not?
They are.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They are. And that's why we're looking at it in addition to the conditional use standards saying that it specifically had to comply with it.
Okay.
However, with the limited number of workshops and training sessions proposed, the transportation and engineering staff found that the transportation system has adequate capacity to serve this proposed use.
No, that makes sense. And I don't have any conflict with their findings. I just wondered how that came in, but that particular finding just jumped out at me. And then page 26, finding at the bottom of the page, it says there's no building facade where the primary entrance is used by the public. Isn't this a public educational facility? So anybody coming in is going to be using the primary entrance?
I think what I probably meant by that is because of the timber zoning and the fact that the primary entrance is not on a public street,
Uh-huh.
the requirements for a public entry to be extended and designed in a more institutional or commercial way are not necessarily appropriate for this use as a timber education facility. I don't know the specific.
Well, I would
I
tend to
guess that's
agree with
on
you,
page 27.
but your code says the following standards apply to building facades, to all building facades where the primary entrance is located, period, whether or not it's on a public or private street or otherwise. But I think given the design and its location in the forest zone, it meets those standards because it has a public entrance. It's clearly defined. It's got a, I don't know what you call it, a roof extension out over the entrance. It has articulation. It has some windows. I think
And the app,
I
yeah.
can draft findings that those are clearly met, but I think it is subject to that. I don't think we can waive it.
And the application requested a modification of the standards in 1005-03.
So would the modification eliminate the need to make that finding?
A modification, as long as the intent of 1005 is met, we can modify the design standards for building facades.
Okay.
And because the applicant requested a modification of 1005-03, staff found that it was in line with the intent and suitable for the proposed use.
Yeah, I agree. Just the way that finding was written, I don't want to exceed the language of the code, so I'll just fix that in my decision, but not a major issue at all. Just wanted to clarify that.
The finishing of that finding is on page 27 that
Mhm.
specifically talks about 1005.01. And that is because the modification criteria says it must be consistent with 1005.01.
Okay,
So that's where the walking of the code went.
great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Everett, looks like you're the applicant's representative and you're the only other person here.
Right, right. My name, you want me to give you a little background and some comments on the project, or?
If you want.
Okay. Okay, I do have a few things. My name is Ken Everett, and I'm the Executive Director of Forest Forever Incorporated, which is a nonprofit corporation. We own another demonstration forest, which is the Hopkins Demonstration Forest in Clackamas County, south of Beaver Creek. And we've had that program going for 35 years now. It's 140 acres. We get between 4,000 and 5,000 school kids on that particular piece of property. And we have the
4,000 to 5,000
educator.
a year or what?
Yes, 45,000 school kids on the Hopkins property per
Mhm.
year. And we have a forest educator, which is a staff of OSU Extension Forestry that is located on the property, works with all the teachers and the students. And then we also on that property get over 15,000 people coming out per year just to hike the trails and enjoy the forest property. The Shink property on Dickey Prairie Road was donated to our organization to use as an additional demonstration forest site. And it's 21 acres in size, so it's considerably smaller, but it has some resources that we do not have at Hopkins Demonstration Forest. It has over 600 feet of river frontage to the Molalla River, where we can teach about aquatics, repairing habitat, and there's a lot of other things we can teach at that site. And so we had wanted to build a pole building on the site, which could be used as an indoor classroom during the wet winter months. And the building itself, we left a buffer of Douglas fir along the highway, so the building itself would not be visible from the highway. And in 2020, I believe it was, we built the covered shelter and installed a parking area and a vault toilet on the property at that time. And now, and at that time too, we did all the improvements to the access into the property. We paved the apron, we limbed up all the trees along the highway, and actually relocated the entrance to give us more sight distance entering and leaving the property. So we were able to make all those improvements on that first go around with the Department of Engineering Transportation. So this property will be used a lot more limited because of the location, but we estimate probably 3 to 4 classes per month coming out to the property. And the students arrive on a bus, so it's not a lot of cars coming in and out. Normally, the students arrive in a bus, and then they're picked up later in the day. OSU will have their educator out there to work just like they have at Hopkins with the students. And in addition to, we want to use that facility for some of the other local agencies and organizations, like the Clackamas County Farm Forestry Association. They'd like to have a meeting there a month. The Native Fish Society, Molalla River Watch, and the Molalla River Alliance, they've all been very supportive. I think they also submitted letters of support, as did OSU Extension. And they'd like to have an occasional meeting out there as well. So it's a good location. Our mission as a nonprofit is to utilize the property for forest education. That's our mission, our goal. We don't use the property for any other purpose. We do manage the forest properties at both locations. And we do have woodland owners come out there for classes as well as students. So we want to be able to educate the public about how we are managing our forests here in Oregon. And that's a great site there, as well as the site over at Hopkins. So that's kind of an overview. We wanted to have basically a fairly simple building, and that's why we chose a pole building. It'll have a concrete floor inside, metal roof, and then on the front we'll have some cedar siding and a covered porch. But it'll be adequate for classes, and some meeting rooms. So it'll basically have a men and women's restroom. There's no kitchen in the building. It's got storage and then the meeting area. So I don't know if you have any other questions I can answer.
I don't.
For you.
Thank you, Mr. Everett.
Okay.
I appreciate the overview.
Okay.
For the record, there is nobody else here who's not staff or the applicant, so there's nobody else requesting to testify. Anything further from staff, Ms. Fields? Okay, she shook her head no. Anything further from the applicant, Mr. Everett?
Nope, I think they did a good job in reviewing all the information we submitted, and yeah.
Okay. As the applicant, you have the right to have me hold the record open for an additional week for you to submit a final written argument. Do you want to waive that right?
Yes.
Okay, with that, I will close the hearing, and based on, based on the findings in the staff report, this application does or will comply with the applicable approval criteria with some minor tweaks to the findings, but I will approve this application subject to those conditions, and I will issue the decision as soon as possible, hopefully within 2 weeks, but I've got a couple of other ones ahead of you that are a little more involved. So I'll get that as soon as possible, and I'll send it to the county. The county will send it to parties of record, which is the applicant. That concludes our hearing. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I don't know if there's anything else I can do for you guys, but I appreciate all the work you put into it. I know well, you have a big workload, and I appreciate you getting it completed for me and everything. So I'll look forward to hearing the final approval report from your hearings officer. So, well, I didn't give you my I forgot to give you the my mailing address, but I believe you have that anyway. So
We have that in the application, yes.
okay. Okay, well,
All right.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
Bye.
bye.